Today we're going to be doing this purely in HTML and CSS, none of that JavaScript stuff, and we're also not going to be using GSAP or anything like that either. Cool stuff. So I was browsing around on Dribbble.com the other day, and I've seen these multiple times. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Kind of like these little scroll indicator things where it shows like a little scroll, kind of like a gesture. And I thought to myself, what would it take to create this in HTML and CSS? Turns out it's not that difficult. So that's what we're gonna be doing in this video. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get started. Now wait one moment, we're about to embark on some front-end development with HTML and CSS. Now what if you're not very good with HTML and CSS and even JavaScript? Well, you should definitely check out the front-end developer career path at scrimba.com.
At Scrimba, you don't just watch videos. No. You're actually able to modify code in the browser while you learn. My course on UI design features over 100 lessons that are specifically tailored to help you become an awesome UI designer, and they're packed with interactive challenges.
So make sure you click on the very top link here on the YouTube description. It's going to give you access to the front-end developer career path, which has it's loaded with a ton of courses. And so you also get access to all of that and more for a low monthly fee. All right, so before we hop into the code, I wanted to show you real quickly, just illustrate the general concept of how this is going to work in the front end aspect. So I'm going to take just this idea right here, this little rectangle, and let's bump this up. And we're going to say this is going to be our very first HTML element. It's going to be the parent container of everything inside of it. And this element is going to have a single element inside of it as well. And it's going to be basically situated kind of like this. All right. So what this means, we'll give this a different color. What this is it's going to be an element that's going to have a bunch of other content. It could just be a photograph, a single image, or it could have, other content inside of it. It doesn't really matter. And the height of this element right here is going to be larger than this parent element. However, this right here, this parent element is going to have overflow hidden on it so that you don't see the bottom stuff. And then we're going to use transform translate Y to move this thing up so that you only see what's inside of here, but it's going to create kind of like an inner scrolling effect. So let's go ahead and get rocking. All right, so I have a blank, well, it's not blank, the boilerplate HTML in Visual Studio Code, by the way. When you get up a new index.html, hit exclamation point enter just to give you this amount, and make sure you add this element so that we link our CSS all up here. And then also I have a CSS folder with the main.sas file, SCSS, and then make sure you use the live SAS compiler and live server. All right, so I have both of those being watched. So this is being watched. So every time I make an update, it's going to create a main.css file, and this is looking for that main.css file. All right, enough of that. Let's get started. So that first parent container, we can name it whatever we want. We're going to put it as a div class equals img container. Now, initially I was going to make this like a single image container. So I ended up changing that to just add a lot more content inside of it, like type-based content. So just ignore this verbiage. It's not really an image container, but it could be named whatever you want. And then we're also going to have that element inside of it that gets hidden. So we're just going to call that content. And again, this could be an image source equals like an image tag if you wanted to just have a single image that reveals or whatever. Now inside of here, we're going to have a number of content. We're going to have, I think we're just going to put sections in here. H1, style points. I was just coming up with random words and verbiage. I did use the lorem thing. So I added a paragraph and I typed lorem. I think it was like 40, hit enter. But I'm not exactly sure how much I did, so I'm just going to paste that in anyhow. And then we're going to have another section. I'm just going to copy this, paste that in here, and just to kind of change it up a little bit, I'm going to change up that type. And I think I have 2 paragraphs here. I'm just going to paste this in from the reference documentation. You can put whatever content you want in here. It does not matter. So this is just filler content for the purpose of this tutorial. And then also we're going to have a div class of cursor. All right, so this is going to be that little cursor dragging effect thing, or pointer, whatever you want to call it. And that's all the HTML is. We're ready to rock. So I'm going to go ahead and get this situated over here so that when we go to view this through the live server, we can have the browser on the right. All right, so if I right click open with live server, momentarily it's going to open. I'll get this situated over here, put it over here. There we go. Okay, so I did realize I kind of made this function for desktop resolution, so I may have to do this, but no big deal. Now we'll go ahead and get some basic boilerplate. I usually do this at the top of most of the CSS projects I create. This is just selecting everything and all of the before and after pseudo elements and changing box size into border box. And that's simply for the purpose of running into issues with width issues when you have padding and margin added as well. We're gonna have a body element inside of here. We're just gonna have a margin 0, height, 100 viewport height. I kind of just like doing that by default for the projects I create. Font family is going to be Poppins. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to import it from Google Fonts, but if this is a real project, of course you would want to do that. And then the background, I think I'm using a kind of like a darker kind of toned purple color. And then also, actually no, we're going to do font family Playfair Display. That's another Google font that I already have installed, so it's going to work for me no matter what. We save it, and here we go. All right, so let's take our content, and let's see what we have working with. So we have our IMG container, and let me find that real quick. Yeah, we should probably do that one first. So our image container, which is the very first element, we're going to set at a width of 60%. All right, that's what it does over there. And we're going to put a height of 30 em units. We're also going to put overflow hidden. That's kind of really important. And then we're going to have a margin just to move it from the top, 10 em, and then auto will center it. And then position relative, because shortly I believe we will use a pseudo element here. All right, now let's take our content element. Now remember, that was image container we just did. Now we have our content element. And we're going to specify width 100% inside of here. And then we're going to put background. It's just going to be slightly lighter than our current background. All right, save that. And then we're also going to put a transition on this. So first, we're going to put transform, translate y 0, and then we're going to transition, which is a very simple type of animation. Transform, 1 second, ease in, out. All right, so let's continue on. For the hover, now this is how I'm deciding to do this. When we hover over it is when this effect's going to occur, when it starts to animate. So having said that, you don't necessarily have to have it on a hover. Like it could completely be something that starts when the page loads or whatever. So I'm going to put content, hover, and in here, let's get this up a little bit. We're going to have transform, translate y, and we'll do negative 430 pixels or so. So you can see what happens there. Now, if I pull this out, same thing, essentially. All right, so now what we'll do is we're going to take our section, and let me find this section here. So our section is inside of the content elements. We have 2 of them. We'll just do a padding of 4 em units on the top and bottom and 8 units on the left and right. I know that looks silly. I didn't mean to make this for desktop, obviously. And we're also going to have, we're going to style the background color differently of our second section. So we'll just do nth of type 2. And that's just going to be like a darker version of the hue that we're already working with. So we can see that there. All right. And I do also going to add some just interesting, like a watermark effect, just so we can really see this effect play out. So what I'll do is put section, actually, we can do it the CSS or the Sass way. and before, and we could just put in content, excellence, position, absolute, left, we'll just push it over by 20%, top will be 0, font size is going to be large, like 14 rem, and the color is, again, we're working with, well, we're just going to make this white and give it like 6% opacity. So now we could see what happens there. Now let's work with our H1 element and our paragraph because they look butt ugly. So we're going to do H1, color white, and font size 3 rem. That's what gives us that. And then also our paragraph, color white, although we could put that in the body, whatever. And then font size 1.25 rem and line height 2 rem. All right. So now we have that part done, essentially. So let's do the cool little cursor hover effect. This is fun to create. So what we'll do is we'll take our cursor class, which is just outside of here, and we're going to put in cursor. All right, position is going to be absolute. Width is going to be 3M units. Height is going to be 3M units, because initially when this starts, we want it to be kind of like a circle. And then we're going to put a border radius of 3M as well. And a border, we're not going to fill it. It's just going to be a border, a thick border, like 4 pixels solid white. So let's see. Okay, we don't see it just yet. We have to put a top here of 2em and a left of 2em. There we go. All right, so also we might want to put pointer events none so that we can hover over this anywhere and it's still going to work and this won't affect it. Okay, so now whenever we hover anywhere over our image container, which is the parent, or, you know, the first HTML element outside of, or after, or inside of rather, the body element, whenever anybody hovers over that, we want to trigger an animation on this cursor right here. So the way we do that is image container, hover, and then specify the class inside of it. So now for this, because it's a multi-step animation, we're not going to use a transition. We're going to use an animation property, so custom keyframes. So to do that, we're going to do animation, move cursor, 1 second, ease in and out. Now, move cursor does not exist yet, so let's go ahead and create that. All right, so here we go at keyframes, move cursor. All right, so we're going to put it 0%. We're going to change the height to 3, or the height is already at 3em. And then we're going to put 20%, opacity 1. Now, by default, I'm going to be hiding this thing. So we're going to come over here and just put, real quickly, cursor before. And we haven't created a rule set for the before element yet, the pseudo element, but we will. And we're going to, but for now, I'm just going to set both of those to opacity 0. So if I save this, we can see what happens, but we're not done yet with the keyframes. So now at 50%, we'll say height 8em units. There it goes. So even that by itself is actually sufficient. It's pretty cool, but we're not done yet. We're gonna make it a little bit better. 80%, we're gonna specify opacity 1 again. And you have to kind of understand how keyframes work. If you look at this kind of like a timeline, by default, this is happening over 1 second, all of this stuff. And we're fading in from opacity 0 here at 20% from the very beginning of the animation. It's going from opacity 0 to opacity 1 here. Now, if we specified it like opacity 1 right here, it would be an instant. It would be an instant appearance. There wouldn't be no fade in. So that's why I added a 20% right here. And then from 0% to 50%, the height is increasing by 5em units. Thus, we get that animation. So let's continue on at 100%. We're going to specify transform, translate y, and so we're going to move it by 5em units. And then also height is going to go back to 3em units, back here to original. So let's save that. And that's what we get. That is pretty cool. Now let's put the little circle in the middle as well. And that's where the cursor before pseudo element comes into play. So and before. And we're going to specify a few more things. So position is going to be absolute. Now we know the width and the height is 3M units, and I'm going to put in actually I don't think I have to put content empty. We have to put a width. I'm choosing to make it 1.5 M units by 1.5 M units, so half of the width. We're going to do a background of white, a border radius of 50%, which makes it a perfect circle, and then a margin of 0.5 M units to get it away from the edge. And we don't see it. And we don't see it because opacity is 0. If I take this off, we still don't see it. So what am I doing wrong? There's probably something I'm doing something very stupidly wrong. I don't think I need to add content empty. I think that was a mistake. Oh, I do need to add content empty. Okay. I'm a noob. So you can see what's happening here. It's kind of silly looking because it's not moving as well. So let's put in opacity 0 to get that back. And then we're going to create another animation. So what we'll do is right here, we're going to copy this. And then we're going to put before, and we're going to have a second animation for that circle specifically. And we'll call it move center. We're almost done. So we're put at keyframes, move center. And in here, it's going to be a very similar structure. So I'm just going to copy this. All right, so for this, we're taking the height off. We don't need the height. We're going to translate. We're going from translate Y, 0. We're going to leave opacity 1 because this is going to fade in in the same rate that this one is over here. At 50, we're going to put in, we're going to leave it at, we're going to put transform and then translate Y 5 M units. So we're moving it down 5 M units. And then we leave this opacity 1 over here, and then we specify, let's see here, transform, translate Y 0 to move it back up. So I don't think this has to be added, but let me see. Let me see what happens when I remove that. Let me add that back. Okay, yeah, it stays a circle, like a high contrast circle, longer. And that's it. So yeah, very cool stuff. As you can see, it's responsive to a degree. It probably looks like crap here. But nonetheless, you can put any content in here and kind of create just this cool sort of scroll effect, which could be added in perhaps a different section of a website where you're illustrating stuff. But yeah, I thought this was a cool, fun little project using just CSS animations and no JavaScript. All right, hopefully you enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to kind of doing more of these types of videos where there's a lot of cool animation-based interactions with UI design. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you have anything that you think is really cool looking and you would like to learn how to do it, give a mention on Twitter. My handle is @DesignCourse.com. And yeah, make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.